So here's another problem, that we feel alone even inside of our family. So this is a kind of a weird one, but when you have too much time devoted to the ministry, well, your family are going to feel left out. Your children may grow up resenting the church. Some pastors' families actually end in divorce. That's a tragedy that comes with this isolation, because the family is also isolated. They're not only isolated from the rest of the church by being put on a pedestal, they're often isolated from you because you're so doggone busy. And this is a big issue here. It's something that we really need to look at. Many pastors leave ministry because of a root problem of loneliness in their own families. So we're going to talk later about pastors' families having problems with toxic people in the church and kind of all those things that undermine a family that are reasons that pastors leave the ministry. But this issue of loneliness actually stretches into the family, and that's something that we need to deal with. The solutions that we find to being alone in our families are: one, bring your family into the ministry. Make sure that they're partnering with you, that you're talking about these things at the dinner table, that it's a part of your life. Find distinct roles in the church for your wife and your children. My wife, in the last church that we pastored, preached a couple times. I couldn't believe it. She was so good. And one of the regrets, I have very few of them, but one of the regrets that I have is that I didn't have her preaching in all of the churches that we were in. We had a really interesting talk about this about 4 or 5 days ago. She always had this gift and I never discovered it. My children, well, we had them involved very, very early in a role, first in a microchurch. They played a part in a microchurch when they're very young. And that part was simply, hey, you heard what Uncle Aaron had to say. What do you think about it? And, getting them involved. But as we move to Hawaii, they're getting a little bit older. My daughter at age 11 is helping in the children's church with younger children. My son at age 13 was the head usher in our church. And by the way, he was the head usher until that church probably grew to about 200 people. So we had 30-year-old guys going to, a little kid asking him for help. But don't build a mom and pop store. One of the mistakes that I see today, people are looking at some of these mega churches where the wife kind of plays a starring role in the church. But for most of us, that takes us from being like, maybe the example would not be Walmart, but the local grocery store that's a big grocery store, like, an Albertsons or a Safeway or something like that. And we reduce the church down to a mom and pop store. And that works against us. That's kind of overplaying this one. Make sure that you're doing this without introducing nepotism. Don't promote your family just because they're your family. Promote them because you want your family in ministry, but promote them because they can do the job better than the next person, and they've earned the opportunity to do that job very well.